Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello and welcome to our podcast, Learning to Glow. We are so lucky to have Emily Brown back with us. She's actually our first repeat guest we've had on the podcast. She is the founder of Genetic Garden, an integrative and functional nutrition practitioner, epigenetics expert, and Pilates pro, as quoted in Goop. She developed the Genetic Garden program based on the fact that every human body is unique, and in order to achieve results, we must understand the whole picture. Food sensitivities, energy levels, sleep habits, stress levels, hormones, exercise, and of course, DNA. Her approach is a client-centric, collaborative, and takes each unique personality into consideration when working with clients. She holds them accountable while providing tools and resources so they may take control of their health. Emily aims to change the way modern society understands their body and takes preventative measures to live long, vibrant lives. She shares with us the importance of mitochondrial health today in this episode, why this is so under-talked about, and how it directly correlates with so many symptoms and illnesses out there. She is amazing at breaking down these more hard-to-understand topics and providing tips and ways we can help increase this function of our body. If you're experiencing any of the following symptoms, fatigue, inflammation, weight gain, migraines, there's others that we talk about on the episode as well, you'll really benefit from this episode. Emily has been somebody that's been there helping me with my health journey. She's been my nutritionist and has helped me so much in this past year. I'm so grateful for her. And I'm just so grateful that she came back to share all of her knowledge. She is truly incredible. I will make sure to link her information. You can follow her at Genetic Garden on Instagram. You can also listen to her first episode with us if you haven't listened to it yet. It was really popular. She answered a lot of listener questions that we had that were really fantastic. So make sure to go and listen to that if you haven't heard it yet. And please enjoy this episode with Emily. Here she is. Welcome to Learning to Glow. I am so excited that we have Emily Brown today with us. You are actually our first repeat guest to come back onto the show. Your episode was so popular and we wanted to have you back. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming back to our show.
What an honor, Jess. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so today we're going to talk about a topic that we really need your help breaking down. I feel like I've seen people talk about it online, but you are so great at helping us to understand these subjects that I feel like could be a little bit more complicated, but are so important. And I just side note, I'm going to be linking your first episode that we did because there are so many great nuggets. It's such a great first place. But so when you're done listening to this one, definitely go back and listen to that. But today we want to talk about mitochondria. And that word seems a little overwhelming to some people. It's very sciencey. So let's just start by breaking it down. What are mitochondria?
Okay, so they are, if you're picturing a little cell, remember, go back to high school, 8th grade biology, we have cells, and they are filled with all these different organelles that have specific roles. And so our mitochondria are these little organelles within our cells that essentially turn energy from food into energy our body can use. And so it's turning all these nutrients that we're eating or taking via supplementation, turning it into this fuel source that's very rich for our body. And that is essentially ATP. And so that's what we call cellular metabolism, our body's ability to turn food into fuel.
Okay, that's awesome. That's a great breakdown. And so obviously that's a very important thing that our body needs to have. So tell me a little bit more about how important this is and why is this so important for us and to be healthy?
I think the mitochondria should get way more attention than they do. They are so undervalued and under-discussed. I mean, they are essentially what keeps us energized and disease-free to live long, energetic lives. We need healthy, functioning optimal mitochondria. And so there's plenty that we can talk about how to make sure we keep them healthy. If they get stressed, how to kind of reverse that stress, or maybe where to look for our stress. But the symptoms are so widely ranging because every single cell in our body has mitochondria. And so if you have stressed or malfunctioning mitochondria, you can feel it throughout the whole body. But generally, we're going to find fatigue, a poor ability to detox, inflammation body wide, typically weight gain, because remember, we're trying to turn food into fuel. And if that mechanism is a little underperforming, then perhaps that food just gets stored as fat instead of burned as fuel. So we always want to make sure that mechanism is properly functioning and we're burning the food that we get, because really fat is our most prevalent and powerful food source compared to carbohydrates and compared to proteins. We get more bang for your buck energetically from fat. And so we want the mitochondria functioning properly so we can have natural energy. They're found really richly on the ovarians. They eat the ovaries. And so the ovarian health is really vital here when we're talking about reproductive health, fertility. And they even have a big role within our hormone health and things like hormone related migraines or hair loss and things like blood glucose within the insulin and the glucagon pathways. So really, top to tail, inside out, mitochondria are going to play a role in our body.
Yeah, so it's very important. And so you've shared some of the symptoms. If this is not something that is fixed or it's kind of left unchecked and you're not having that healthy mitochondria, can this lead to more severe outcomes like disease and, different things like in the body that we don't want?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the adage that's really common is inflammation is the root of all disease. Well, I think we're getting a little bit more specific into that phrase. And the root of all disease, perhaps, especially metabolic disease, which is so prevalent now, is mitochondrial health. And so, just like you said, when that's underperforming or as we age, there's cancer, infertility, diabetes. It's linked with heart diseases, all of the cardiovascular and metabolism related diseases. It's because they are so energy focused. Their higher rates are in our organs that burn through a lot of energy. And so that's the brain, skeletal muscle, hearts, endocrine, our hormones, and our kidneys. So those are really the sites that we can find disease commonly.
Oh, it makes so much sense. And I've been hearing about this topic and hormones a lot. So it makes sense what you're saying about like that it's concentrated on the ovaries and different things like that, how that could really make an impact negatively on those types of issues, which is like so many people are having issues with that.
Totally.
It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
They're finding more and more too. It's linked with not just those diseases I mentioned, but because they naturally start to accumulate stress and find dysfunction as we age. And so they're finding that they're really highly linked with the age related neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's as well.
Mm. Oh, okay. So can you explain to us a little bit more, I guess, more nitty gritty, like how do they work? Is that
Yeah, let's
something
get
that you can
into it.
explain? Okay.
Okay, without getting too sciencey, let's picture. Okay, so what they do is they work in what's called the electron transport chain. And that's about as in depth as we'll get. I want you to kind of picture an assembly line of your friends. And maybe you're trying to package up a bunch of gifts, or, everybody along the assembly line is contributing something so that the ultimate package is ready to go, right? And so you and your friends are assembling these compounds and that are going to be sent off as energy, as ATP. And so all of these reactions are happening at the mitochondrial level. Nutrients are coming in, they're being used. We have CoQ10, we have NAD. All of these nutrients have to be contributed to that electron transport chain so that the ultimate product that's excreted is ATP. And about 90% of our body's energy is produced this way in the mitochondria. So essentially, they're turning those nutrients from food into that energy that our body can use for biochemical reactions. That's
Okay.
also where we're turning fat into fuel as well. So that's called beta oxidation. We have a lot going on in the mitochondria, and we'll have a couple diagrams. I'll put up a very complex one that really shows even the site where the nutrients come in and then that ultimate output of ATP and water. And then I'll also include a little bit of a simplified one so you can really see the diagram there, the start to finish in the products.
Okay. Oh yeah, that those visuals are helpful. So the next thing everybody's going to want to know is how do we increase it? Like how do we make sure that we're getting that it's healthy and that we're getting what we need?
Yeah, right. If we want more energy, which have yet to have a client that hasn't wanted more energy, natural energy, right?
Right.
That's when we can start doing what's called mitochondrial biogenesis. We can start making more of them. And there's many ways to do this holistically, right? We want to do things like exercise. This is how we can make more mitochondria because mitochondria are found in our muscle cells. So when we're using strength training, resistance training, we're building more muscles. Now we have more energy producing mitochondria. So that's a great way. And that's very protective against aging as well. That's one of the best things we can do. That's why exercise is so powerful for longevity. This is one of the mechanisms. We can also get into nutrients. And so there's plenty of nutrients that are required. Remember in that assembly line. So you're contributing some CoQ10, I'm contributing some vitamin B3, and we have a whole bunch of our other friends contributing things like we've got carnitine, we've got creatine, NAC, berberine, resveratrol, all of these kinds of things. They contribute in a specific way, whether it's food or fuel source for that electron transport chain, whether it's helping to declutter the cell to get rid of the byproducts to make sure it's kind of uncluttered and that process can happen optimally. So every kind of nutrient in the suite provides a little bit of a different role, but they're all very essential for this electron transport chain, for the mitochondrial health, and ultimately for that ATP output. That's why I created my everyday essential multivitamin. It is chock full of these nutrients that are required for mitochondrial health and functioning. It also has a little section in it too that has some very cool compounds that are helpful for hormone balancing, and then even things like some broccoli extract that works epigenetically to turn up those detox genes. So it's a very complementary suite of nutrients there for body-wide health, but more specifically focused within the mitochondria.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. We've got a few more holistic ways to induce mitochondrial biogenesis. So we've got sleep and stress reduction. This is a lot of where that decluttering can happen as well. And we've got morning sunlight, which when we see the specific rays in the morning, they come through our eyeballs, they go into the brain, and they activate our metabolism in our mitochondrial cells to start doing the damn thing, right? Start making energy. And if we can start to trigger our cells in a very natural way to do their roles in a more profound, strong way, more power to us. And then lastly, one of my favorite ways to induce mitochondrial biogenesis is through fasting. And this is something I really help clients do because it's very personalized. There should never be a one way to fast for everybody. In fact, it's not even for everybody, depending on your hormones, where you are energetically, stress wise, sleep wise, all of those things play a part into whether or not fasting is right for you. But what fasting does is it activates this process called AMPK. And so this enzyme, it improves our ability to tolerate stress in the body. It increases our antioxidant abilities. It increases our fat burning abilities, and ultimately it increases autophagy, which is that decluttering that we really want for disease prevention. And autophagy is really only induced when we have fasted for about 16 hours. So even if you can do that about once a week, that's wonderful. And so, working with clients, we figure out, so ideally TRF, time restricted feeding, we're working we're eating within 12 hours, right? 7 to 7. Let's call that a safe window. And if that's where you're at for most of the week, that's wonderful. And then maybe 1 or 2 times a week, you have breakfast still at 7, but you scooch that dinner into 5. Now you're at a 10-hour window for eating, and that's even better than 12. And then maybe once a week, you keep that 5 p.m. dinner, but maybe you had a little bit of a later breakfast and you started from 9. So 9 to 5. Now you've hit that 8-hour eating window and induce that autophagy. So there's all sorts of ways to make fasting flexible for you and make sure it suits your lifestyle, because we can create these plans and figure out when is your least stressful day, when do you have the least amount of cognitive demands, physical demands. Maybe that's the day you do that smallest eating window, making sure it's not in a day where you're giving presentations or you have a whole chaotic travel schedule. So there's all sorts of ways to personalize that.
Well, I think, you and I have worked together, and that's what I loved about working with you, is how you could really personalize that. And that's what you did for me. And I had that kind of 7 to 7 window.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't feel like fasting at all, because I mean, that's plenty of time to get your meals in. And when you customize it for, because for me in the past, waiting until noon to eat my first meal of the day was not good for me at all. So I really loved that 7 to 7, and to know that I'm still getting great benefits, because I thought, before working with you, I was like, I don't think I could really see a benefit of the fasting with that type of long window. I felt like I had plenty of time. So it's so nice that you can actually get a benefit from that large of a window.
Totally. And remember the first thing we saw when we got your test results and we saw that endocrine stress, there goes fasting in the morning, right? That's how we
Right.
can help to determine what kind of fasting is right for you. Is fasting right for you? Is we get these hormonal markers back, see where the stress in your body is lying, and figuring out how can we customize a plan for you. One thing that's really helpful that I'm coming out with is, complementing a holistic health plan. Sometimes it might not be enough. When I've worked with clients and we've got everything in place, the sleep's locked in, we've got the morning and the PM stress reduction, nutrition is locked, we've got some supplements coming, and movement is just right. But what if they're still feeling a little bit stuck through their metabolic pathways, maybe with weight management, maybe even with some cholesterol or some lipid levels? Now we have I'm coming out with your metabolic boost, which is all plant products. It's just really a mixture of lemon verbena, hibiscus, and a decaffeinated green tea, which what we were just talking about, that AMPK pathway, that's what it works on. So it's kind of like mimicking a fast and telling your body, hey, let's start preferring a fuel source that is our stored fat cells. So meaning your body now is in a preferred state of breaking down your fat cells. And so that's what your metabolic boost helps to do. Really kind of break through the plateaus and help trigger your body into breaking down stored fats again. Because sometimes, if our hormones are imbalanced, if our diet's high in sugars or carbohydrates, we can't ever get to that point because our body will prefer glucose instead.
Mm.
And so this is a nice way to help your body get into that transition and start preferring fat as a fuel source. Because remember, that's where energy comes from, ideally. And so with this, you're going to have a better ability to use your stored fat, break down those adipose cells, and burn them for fuel, and a better source of fuel at that.
I could use a metabolism boost, as you know. I can't wait to try these. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
great. So I do want to do a little caveat here, though. So this is something that I'm requiring past or present clients, to have a relationship with them. As a holistic health practitioner, it's so about a comprehensive, personalized plan. We want to make sure all of those other holistic avenues are being addressed, right? The mind, body, the stress, the sleep, nutrition, and movement. And then this can come in as a complementary tool not a quick fix, not a fad
Right.
diet, nothing like that. So there will be, a gentle layer of accountability working with me as a practitioner in order to utilize this tool.
I love that. That's so important, and I think that's the way you're gonna see your results anyway.
Absolutely.
I
We're
do
in it
want
for the long haul, right? Yeah.
That's right.
When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today.
I did want to go back to one of the steps that we can do to really increase our mitochondrial health, and that is the morning sunlight. So I know that this has been talked about for a little while, and I want to ask you, what are some maybe easy steps for someone who is new to this? Because what I've learned and what I've just started implementing is, one thing that I know a lot of us are guilty of is picking up our phones before we sort of go outside.
Totally.
And so that is something that I just started implementing. Is I actually, when the sun rises, I'm outside, I'm getting some sunlight, and it's really only a few minutes, but give us like a little tip or your recommendations for doing this so that you're getting the benefits, because I feel like
Totally.
this is huge.
Oh man, it is so impactful. It's so impactful because the way it communicates with our genes. So this is a very simple, free tool
Yeah.
at our disposal that has a profound effect in our body. It also instigates our sleep cascade. So when we're looking at the sunrise, the specific sun rays that come in are like, hey, Jess, in 12 hours from now, we're going to start hitting the hay. We're going to start turning up the melatonin, turning up all of the sleep cascade signals to really create a deep restorative sleep. So, I mean, the impacts aren't just for the day. They go all the way through the night and complement our whole healthy circadian rhythm. So when it's bright and sunny outside, we're looking at like 3 to 5 minutes outside, you get these benefits. It kind of jumps up to around 20-30 minutes, which I know is a little bit longer when it's cloudy outside.
Okay.
But as long as you can still see in front of you, the sun's there lighting it up. So don't feel like, first of all, don't feel like you got to stare straight at the sun or that it's not working just because the clouds are there. It still is. You just need a little bit more. But my favorite tip, first thing in the morning, brush your teeth, and you're going to have your big glass of water, maybe ideally with some apple cider vinegar, and you go have that on your stoop, and then your first cup of coffee after that. And I love to enjoy that outside as well. My favorite, so there's a leading stress reduction doctor out there, Dr. Chatterjee, and he has wonderful tips for stress reduction. He talks about 3 M's, and I have a little bit of my own modified. So first thing in the morning, getting your 3 M's. And so that's morning sunlight, mindset, and movement. And I'm so a gal who's like, more bang for your buck. How can we condense this in the tightest little package possible? And so this is what I do. I have my big cup of water and apple cider vinegar, grab my dog, I go take her for a walk. I'm outside getting my morning sunlight. I'm getting a light bit of movement. And if I add in some nice slow exhales while I'm walking her, I've got my calming mindset work as well. So it can be really, really simple, and they don't have to be, sequential. We can wrap these all up at once.
I love that, because then you're not feeling like, okay, for the first 10 minutes, I'm doing one thing. And then, then you lose people because you're like, I don't have time for that. But if you can do it all when you're having to walk your dog anyway. That's
Exactly.
the win right there, I feel like.
Exactly. For me, I do one step before all of that, if I'm being perfectly transparent, and I'll do my guided or my meditation. And if you like to do it guided, that's all good too. But I do that before I get out of bed. And that is a great tip because you can't be on your phone while you're meditating. So now already I have a built-in 10 to 15 minutes of waking without any screens. And so if you need something to take up that time, that's a great resource to do. I mean, meditation's got profound effects, but even if you just need something to help you avoid your phone for those first moments while you're waking up, that would be my top recommendation.
Because that'll sort of interfere with the benefits of going outside if you're having that blue light. Is that right?
Totally, because it's really, really tricky on your body when you're looking at blue light. Your body's like, "Hey, it's noon," and
Yeah.
which is very confusing, especially when you're looking at your blue light at nighttime. There, it down regulates all of your melatonin and all of the sleep cascade mechanisms I was talking about that morning sunlight and sunset rays do. So it's very tricky. It's very confusing for your body. It throws the circadian rhythm out of whack, and that's when your body just starts functioning very inoptimally, as if the body doesn't communicate well with itself anymore.
And that's easy to see how that would turn into like so many issues come of that. And actually it's funny because that we're talking about this because I just this week was like, okay, I kind of got back into a bad habit of looking at my phone at night.
Uh-huh.
And so last night I was like, okay, I'm not doing any screens tonight. I'm watching a really good show too. And I'm like, I'm taking a break. I'm not watching it tonight. And I went to bed earlier. I read, and then I woke up so early because I was good. I slept so well. I woke up and I was like, it was early. I'm not even gonna say how early it was, but I felt great. So I got up and I did all of the things that I wanted to do. And I'm like, that just is a that just is a pretty obvious
Oh yeah.
win, you
A good
know?
old fashioned book. There is nothing better. There's nothing better. And that's my number one recommendation when people are having sleep issues to help pull away from the screen time is just a good old fashioned book. And so funnily and ironically, people go, but then I fall asleep too fast if I'm reading. I'm like, well, yeah, isn't that exactly the point?
Isn't that what you want?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I love that. So thank you for expanding on that a little bit because
Yeah.
I'm super I'm super like pumped to start doing this every day and see what the results are because I already know today, one day my energy is way up. And like you said, every single person that you talk to is always looking for more energy. That has been my issue for a few years. So,
Yeah, so
uh
even if you do sleep, people oftentimes say, "I got my eyes were shut for 8 hours. I'm good. I don't need to change my nighttime habits and looking at my phone or watching TV as I fall asleep and maybe the TV's on while I'm sleeping." Well, then comes back the hormone panel and maybe their testosterone's low, their melatonin's low, all of these things that occur during deep restorative sleep are low. And so it's like
mm,
even if your eyes are shut, that's the beautiful work and restoration and regrowth and rebuilding isn't occurring. And that's where, like, at the expense of your long-term longevity, minimizing disease span, all of that is taking a back seat to those quick fixes and looking at your phone right before you go to bed. It does start having that additive effect that increases, premature aging and things like that.
yeah, and just stress too, because what are you looking at night?
Yeah.
I can tell you, I'm not watching very calming things.
No,
Then
it's not all kittens and yarn balls, I know.
no. So do you wanna talk about a little bit my functioning of my mitochondrial health? Oh,
Yeah, sure.
okay.
Well, a lot of people, we're talking about something that's really, really significant in the body. Well, how do you know how well your mitochondria are functioning? There's a couple different ways to test this. We can look into the specific nutrients, those nutrients that I mentioned that help fuel the mitochondria. We can also take a more global perspective of your body and look at how well your systems are performing. And so we could look at your metabolism system and kind of get a score out of 100 of how well it's functioning. And so when we looked at yours, Jess, your metabolism was functioning pretty well. It was way up in the green at a 91%, but you had quite a bit of stress within the endocrine system. And so those are the hormones. And so it's always nice to address mitochondria while you have any other stressed systems, because now that we know mitochondria are in every single cell of the body, that's a great place to start. It's kind of like putting the jumper cables on every system in the body and kind of reigniting their own ability to function well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think if somebody wants to look at this and like figure out where their systems are a little stressed, can you just talk about that a little bit and how you kind of test for that, or what your protocol
Oh,
is
yeah.
for? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for instance, your test came back 40% on the endocrine, right? That's some chronic stress. That means, remember, you hadn't done a test like this before. Nothing is your fault. Don't think you could have done it any differently. Now we know where the stress is. And now we get to start investigating what's causing that stress. We know it's in the endocrine system. So what's causing it? And this is where we look at what's called STAIN in the functional health world. So that's stress, toxins, adverse food reactions, infections, and nutrients. So that makes the acronym STAIN. And so stress, this can be finances, people going through massive life changes like divorces or breakups, taking care of elderly parents or children. All of these things are very additive. And so this is why we always complement a personalized plan with some stress reduction. So the second one, we'd be looking at toxins. There's all sorts of toxins out there. And, our toxic load is just going up and up and up because now they're in our water sources, our food sources. And it's not to scare. It's just about finding out where our exposures are personally and how to minimize them moving forward. So toxins for the endocrine system, really commonly, those could be metals like mercury actually can invade the mitochondria and then break up or impede its ability to turn that fat in. So when we have things like chronic fatigue or depleted energy, we should always be looking at toxins. What's messing up the mechanism of the mitochondria? Parasites and bacteria, of course, we would look into those as well. Sometimes if our infections have gone on unchecked for so long, they'll enter the cell and start impacting the mitochondria. So that's typically a sign of a long-term infection. And one of those could fall within the viral umbrella as well, something like EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. Next, we would look at adverse food reactions or food sensitivities. And this is very common. This is within that full scan test that we did for you. And then lastly, we would look at what nutrients you're deficient in. Because now that we know there's specific nutrients that play a vital role in creating a healthy mitochondria and its energy production, we would always want to look there. And then lastly, if you're consistently low in certain vitamins, consistently low in these B vitamins, maybe we would do a genetic test and look at, hey, maybe you've got a genetic SMP for the MTHFR, which I personally have too. And so I'm always very cognizant of my B vitamin intake. And I just know from here on out, I'm going to be taking a B complex, and that's okay with me. It just took a little while to figure out.
Yes, and I think that's what's so great about this test is that you can really, it won't take that long to figure out. Like it helps you so much faster to figure it out. I mean, I had so many different foods that were causing me problems that I was able to remove and see a big difference. And like that alone has been so helpful for me. Like really, and I had no idea like some of the things, and and one of the things that was on my list was coffee, and I have not had coffee since May. So that is, I mean, that's a big deal, especially at the rate.
in a day like today when you're flying high and you definitely don't even think about wanting it or needing it, or like not just in the wakeful sense, but in the cognitive sense. Like you're firing right now. I can see you're all smiles, the wheels in your brain are turning. And so that's just a wonderful sign of that internal health, decluttering all those toxins and the inflammation that the food sensitivities was creating. we addressed it all. We're getting rid of what was stored and then setting your body up for success moving forward so that in case you do run into these things again, your body's so much more well equipped at flushing them out right away.
Yeah. And that knowledge is what's helped me move the needle where I have been stuck previously for so long. So this has been so amazing. You are so amazing at breaking all of this down because this can feel overwhelming. And especially like even for me, I've been hearing about it, but it kind of goes over my head. So you really helped me kind of get it in my brain a little bit easier. So would you please tell everyone, because I know the first time you came on my podcast, the minute I got off the call with you, I sent you an email and I was like, can we please start working together like today? Because I know that this is what I need. I know people are going to feel the same way. So can you please tell our listeners where to find you, how to work with you, what you offer and everything like that?
Oh, yes, of course. So please come say hi. I'm at genetic_garden on Instagram. You could send me a message. You can set up a free discovery call right with the link in my bio there. And we just kind of figure out where you're at, what's going on with you, what kind of symptoms are you looking to alleviate? And then together we would figure out what kind of plan might be best for you. Is it the 3-month that's really nutrition and lifestyle stress orientated? Or is it the 6-month that also has that added bonus of personalized workouts that really cater to your body, your hormones, and your goals? And so it's very client centric, and we figure it out together what's right for you.
Well, you are so great. And I just want to thank you again for coming back and sharing all of your wisdom with us.
My pleasure. I love science. Bring me on anytime. I'm here for you.
I will. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.